We're live. Good now. Welcome to BetaCodex Live. I'm Ryan Erickson, and the person on the right of your screen is
Niels Fleging. Hello.
That's you. That's the person who's here.
That's me. That's me. I'm lucky. I'm happy about this episode, Ryan, as we will talk about something entirely new and fresh, I think.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so the title of the episode, we kind of went back and forth on this. So what are we calling this? Why aiming for acceptance is doomed. So it started with this fixation on acceptance versus inviting active ownership, or think it was fixation on acceptance versus active ownership. And I didn't have the inviting part first. So so I want to know, where did that topic? What inspired that topic today? Is it random, or is there something specific that you wanted that came up for you?
As random as research always is, right? Because you stumble upon things. But this distinction, fixation on acceptance on the one side and invitation-based active ownership on the other side, it comes from another person who's totally unrelated to our movement. Last year, I think in November 2nd, I attended a conference a political conference, actually, about democracy and citizenry at the University of Mannheim. Some famous speaker, including our Vice Chancellor, Robert Habeck, spoke there. Excellent academics, some of them who live and teach in the United States. One of them teaches in Stanford, actually. And at a certain point of the conference, professor went on stage. Her name is Anita Angel from the University of Hamburg. She spoke about the dynamics of politics and climate change. So not really related to our topic, right? But she started, Professor Anita Angel from the University of Hamburg. She started off by saying, I cannot help noticing that a lot of the talks at this conference are hopelessly biased towards a fixation on acceptance. And that is part of the problem.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a wonderful way of getting everybody to think about the way we talk about change. Yeah, because that conference was about democracy, citizenship, and change in societies and politics, so to speak. Yes. Yeah. And of course, this is highly related to stuff that we take from Alan Deutschmann, who said that the 3 Fs can never work: facts, fear, force. They can never work. So we can never convince people. We can never, force people into acceptance of facts. We cannot, for example, preach to smokers to become non-smokers. It doesn't work. Appealing to people doesn't work. Trying them to accept facts, even if they are the best facts, will never work. So. And this is totally true as well in organizational change, organizational development, and thank you for adding that.
I had to put that on there.
Force. Those are the 3 Fs distinguished by Alan Deutschmann in his wonderful book, Change or Die. And yes, this idea that change management, organizational development, we started by trying to convince people with facts. We start to inspire fear with them, sense of urgency, it's sometimes sophisticatedly called, and we try to force them or bribe them or coerce them into the change. Those things do not work. And Anita Angel, she calls this fixation on acceptance, which is totally doomed. Yeah, fixation on acceptance in change only leads to change management, let's say, and it can never work. That's why it doesn't work.
So the fixation is there's an assumption. I'm fixed on this that how could change happen any other way? To be fixed on this that you who are not changed the way I wish to be changed, to enroll in what I'm doing, that I have to accept. I have to convince you. All right, that was, I think, when you use the word convince, It's like, okay, so, and we've talked about this on numerous occasions. I
Yes.
can't convince you of anything. You
Yes.
can't convince me of anything. It's
Yes.
important that we again, coming to agreement. But that in my mind thought about, well, if let's say I were in an organization
Yes.
and wanted,
Which we
so
all are, in a way, one way or another.
yeah, one organization, family, public, civic, a commercial enterprise of some kind,
Sure.
right?
Yes.
And I'm in an alpha organization, so with all the baggage that comes with that, and I encounter the BetaCodex work, and I think, well, boy, I think this is cool shit. I want this. I want this to happen as an individual, right? So my initial thought is like, I want this. I want to seek the people who have power to make this happen in an organization, just to sponsor. I want to convince them, influence them towards that. And
Yes.
I'm like, is there something wrong with that? What's the distinction between knowing that something is, I guess, feeling just and righteous with this, maybe, and what you're talking about? That's, I want to understand that a bit more.
Yes, it's a great topic, great question, because there's a fine line for sure about influencing so that, for example, when we do this podcast here or this weekly show at the BetaCodex Live, of course we try to influence people's minds, right? We try to not convince, but to purvey insight, or give others the opportunity to have insight in a way. So we try to influence, right? Of course we try.
Well, inform, yeah.
Yeah, inform.
Okay, so,
yes, we can only inform, and then the person chooses to have an insight or not.
right.
You can never convince somebody. I see this on insights all the on LinkedIn all the time. People choose. They have their experience and they don't want to learn. It happens all the time. We all have opinions, and to break through, for people to change their mind, it requires didactics in a way, pedagogy, so to speak, method of learning. Yeah. So there's that. But then there is a question of how do we make beta real? For example, you asked about the BetaCodex, and people find the BetaCodex attractive, appealing, interesting, or thought-worthy at least. Then how to proceed, right? And there, I think the problem lies, because often, and I've been in this business since 2003, so more than 20 years. I often see peers and colleagues that convince themselves of beta, for example, that they start to preach and appeal to others and try to teach it. And I think that's I'm also certainly guilty of that, doing that occasionally as well. Yet I'm not saying I'm not part of this, free of this thing of trying to preach or appeal. Especially as a public speaker, there's always this fine line you walk, right? You walk on a stage and you tell people something, you talk to people, and
telling a story. You want to elicit an emotional response. There's this I am here because I'm sharing this idea. I believe in it. Okay, there's this belief, and I'm passionate about it. I'm not going to try and manipulate you. I think this is the other thing. I think when I'm thinking about this, you're saying there's a difference between being passionate and informing, and stating your case in a way that's emotional, that you may have influence on someone. Right.
Sure.
That is different. This is me, crazy. I think that it's different from saying, I want to manipulate this person to do something so that I get something.
Sure. So that's an entirely different arena. Exactly. However, now if we think about organizational development and change, one of the things that you might be tempted is to tell people, fact, fear, force, how things are, how the reality is, convince them, force them away, right? And that will never work, and especially with beta, which requires rethinking at first. So one of the key insights that we want to discuss today is any approach that tries to build acceptance first and then to act is doomed. And that is what change management is all about. I mean, usually in change management, there's also an element of developing solutions behind closed doors, which is also terrible. But usually at some point of the change management stuff, you want to convince, get in the boat, kick off. We talked about this in other episodes of this show. Will never work because you cannot build acceptance to then justify your actions. You must first act with conviction, with will, and invitingly so, and invite people to join the effort. But you must start with the action. And that is the opposed approach. Instead of being fixated on acceptance in order to get going, you should get going. Try building, invitation-based, building shared ownership. And that is a radically different approach that, of course, is deeply embedded in Open Space Beta, which, of course, is why when Anita Angel from the University of Hamburg talked about this distinction between our fixation of acceptance that dooms us right from the start, because we will never gain acceptance before we start working on the change, on the stuff, on the system. So this is very much in line with what Kurt Lewin says. If you want to truly understand a system, try to change it. Don't try to convince people. Try to change it, and then you will learn about the system. So this action research approach, this relate, repeat, reframe approach by Alan Deutschman, all these are similar, are related to what we're discussing today.
Okay.
Does this make sense?
Yeah. Again,
I shocked you a little bit into this topic, Ryan, just so that everybody knows.
It was because it's and it took a couple days to kind of figure out the wording of how to say this and put the frame around it that made sense. So the change part of it is that what the shocking truth about this is that going in the back room, designing something with the upper echelons, the top management, if you will, and rolling it out, running up the mountain and holding out there like two tablets of the word of God, and that thou shalt follow this, and trying to say that this is, you don't necessarily have any agency. This is going to happen or else, and force, fear, and what was the other one? Facts. So maybe the facts is not part of the lightning going to come down, but yes, this broke my brain a little bit, because we're talking about change agents too. I think this is that the idea of, hey, I'm a change agent. I want good stuff to happen, right? And so how am I individually a force for good stuff to happen? Am I not obligated, because of what I care about, to sing the song, spread the word, and help people understand, right? That's and I want to get to some kind of because I'm still trying to get around it for myself. How do I, again, I say this whole we crap, it just drives me nuts. How do I inform in such a way that it is inviting and not full of facts and not full of emotion and that kind of stuff? So let me go there first, because we're really talking about the agency, at least I am.
I thought you wanted to say to explain.
Well, not really, because like I said, my brain's still breaking. It's now. It is. My brain is broken apart. You see this in my hand. I'm trying.
It's very early in the morning.
I'm trying to drug myself into coherence.
Yes. Here it's midday, so it's easier on your side of the Atlantic.
Well, it's
6 a.m. Good morning, America.
Good morning, America. Well, I'm good. Maybe some folks will see this, and when I broadcast it again, it'll be 8 a.m. when most folks are up. And
it will be very confused. People will have crashes in their brains as well. So, oh my God, who am I? Where am I?
So here's the alternative is like, okay, if I'm not going to beat my head up against the wall trying to convince you of something
there's a great song. I have to interrupt. There is a great song by one of my preferred bands from Germany, but they sing in English. They're called Fury in the Slaughterhouse, and they have this. The song is "Cut Myself into Pieces," and it's I won't cut myself into pieces for no one. Oh no, I won't do that for you. Cut myself. It's beautiful. So we shouldn't cut ourselves into pieces to gain acceptance. This is very important. Gaining acceptance by others for something that you want to do is the wrong approach, and it will break any significant change effort right from the start. It will doom you into failure. Yeah, and it is like a religion. That's what Anita Angel so beautifully explained. I think. What we try to talk about today, it is like a religion. We want others to accept. I mean, we want to get loved for our inside because we have huge egos, or we kind of think that others are just a little bit too dumb. They do not know the facts, or they have difficulties embracing reality or the facts, or they do not want change. All this is part of the church of acceptance fixation. Yeah. And it will never get you there because you build resistance into the process. We have also talked about why resistance doesn't exist in this show. And so this whole idea that I want something and I get others in the boat already makes you a loser. Thing is, you need to get to, now this is the link to Open Space Beta, you need to get to the sponsor. The sponsor must really, really want beta or whatever this is about. Yeah, and then you get going, and then you invite people to come along and take responsibility and share ownership of the thing. So the approach to change that we are suggesting, and this is very interesting in the context of I think the BetaCodex of self-organization, radical decentralization, organizational democracy. I mean, in the movements that I joined in Beyond Budget, the Beyond Budgeting movement 21 years ago, we were all kind of flabbergasted why nobody did Beyond Budgeting. We didn't get it, When I joined as a Beyond Budgeting Roundtable director in 2003, the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable had already operated in research for 5 years, right? And we were ready to publish the first books about the topic. But no organization had attempted full-fledged Beyond Budgeting transformation yet at the time. And we were wondering what was missing. Especially Robin Fraser and I, we were kind of we didn't get it, and we wanted to see organizations transform. And with hindsight, I must say it's all too freaking obvious that we tried to convince people of Beyond Budgeting, the community. Of course, that was it was a roundtable. It was a community you could become an associate. It still exists today. Yeah. All the members tried to...
The BBRT you're talking about.
The BBRT, yes, the Beyond Budgeting Institute, as it's now called. And all the members also tried to gain acceptance of others, convince others, get others in the boat, confront them with facts. So we had the best intentions, but the totally flawed method. The method isn't to convince others, isn't to gain acceptance, to gain widespread acceptance, and then things will just come along. No, it doesn't work like that.
That's the whole case study thing, isn't it?
That's a case study thing. Exactly. We discussed why case studies don't work, why they fail. That was a great episode, by the way. I think we had a wonderful discussion about that. I'm not sure which episode it is, but please look at the catalog. Great. Exactly. Yeah. That's why case studies do not convince anybody. Most people, like our friends, wonderful friends at Corporate Rebels, they think that rubbing case studies, cases, case examples, little case narratives into people's faces will change anybody's mind. It isn't so, because this is not about acceptance. In a way, the opposite of acceptance is conviction, to have conviction and act, and then invite people to join, but to join something that's already moving, actual professional organizational development, actual professional organizational transformation that deserves the name, is about get going first and start inviting people to join. It's like Martin Luther King. Imagine Martin Luther King. I have a dream. I have a dream. And he would have said, no, until we convince like 50% of Americans,
I can't have a dream yet.
We won't
get
do
a
anything.
dream.
Exactly. We would just dream the dream, No, they started marching. They started challenging. They started doing stuff,
Yeah.
So I have a dream meant I have a conviction, and I will invite you to join me. And you can, if you stay out, you can stay out. Okay, then you will be on the wrong side of history sooner or later. That is invitation and obtaining shared ownership. And then people came along, like Harry Belafonte and the march at Selma. People joined. Some people only, right? Very few people, one might say. But it changed the world, at least America.
Well, and I mean, and there were people. The other thing that comes to mind is there's this. I don't know if you ever saw the dancing guy in the field video. I think the Derek.
Oh, I hate that video. That's so fake.
Well, whether fake or not, but I think the point is similar to the point you're making. That somebody is going to go there and look like whoever they're going to look like, and they're going to start dancing.
Yeah,
and
is that you in the video? He looks a little bit like you. Like
not I'm gonna rip off my clothes and dance.
Yeah.
So, but the point is, I think you're saying, and people call that the first follower video, and that, but I think this is the whole point of. I mean, it's a whole other series of episodes. I think about leadership and followership and what that means. That the thing I wanted to take, that the dancing guy, Martin Luther King Jr. or
I prefer Martin Luther King.
Okay, fine. So whatever.
Oh, Malcolm X. I prefer people who did something, with. But okay, you prefer the dancing guy. I see that. Maybe.
Okay. So, name the dudes at the Boston Tea Party, right? So somebody takes responsibility. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. There's like I'm not waiting for somebody to do something. I'm not looking at my peer over there. I'm saying I'm going to do this. And this is what I know. I know enough, and I believe enough, and we've talked about that as well. This idea of knowing that I'm going to take responsibility to make something happen, right? So I'm going to like you're saying that you're doing the thing. You're starting by maybe this is. I was gonna say, because in the 45-day period, right? In the invitation
in
period,
OpenSpace Beta, yes.
In OpenSpace Beta, Prime OS, all the mode, the invitation-based change through OpenSpace that we're talking about. That there is this moment that someone says, "I'm taking responsibility and I'm going to share," right? And
yes,
so that
I just
that's
this
the
client, one of my clients,
they're
doing OpenSpace Beta transformation. Yesterday, the sponsor sent out the invitation, and already. People
the first one?
First one? What do you mean?
The first invitation.
The invitation for OpenSpace 1. Yes. The clock is ticking, They are all in the 60 days of preparation for OpenSpace 1, OpenSpace meeting 1. And yesterday the invitation went out, so they have approximately 45 days. It's 40 days in their case until the first OpenSpace meeting. And already people are accepting, and I saw one of the acceptance emails. I got it forwarded. Lovely stuff. People make up their minds. They already changed their minds by invitation. Some of them will change their minds immediately if the invitation is well crafted. It took us a long time, by the way. That's why in OpenSpace Beta it takes 14 days to craft the invitation, because
that is so super huge, and I think that gets lost in open space writ large everywhere. That the invitation crafting process is very intentional. It has to be very, very clear, and yet also very, how do you say it better than to say inviting? But it requires a sense of that this is your choice. It is your choice. I am not going to force you. I'm not going to try and scare you into this, and that anything like that. So,
by the way, with that invitation, just as a little fun fact, we went through 3 totally different themes for the OpenSpace meeting 1. The sponsor wrote up. Of course, I never write these things for the sponsor. The sponsor writes them, and I rejected 2 versions, which were the first. I rejected it and explained the sponsor why. The second, which was very different already, I also rejected it, and we had another conversation about it. And then the third was perfect. And the same happened with the invitation. Well, with the invitation, I think we went through 8 to 10 versions, especially this part where, it's important in what we're talking about today. If you do not look for acceptance, but if you want to invite people to share the ownership of it, yes, then you must start with explaining yourself. Instead of presenting facts, you must also talk about yourself. Why is it important to you? Why it matters to you?
Yeah.
So instead of telling stories like, profitability is not good, this is not good, this is not good, this number, this our strategy, our whatever,
Or we need to do this, like you guys out there need to do this.
I think the right thing to do is to say why I cannot accept this anymore. This is why I feel that we are that we are lost in a way, that we have to do things entirely differently. And I assume that you might feel something similar, different. Here's why I think that you might feel similarly, differently, but maybe similarly.
Yeah,
and
well,
we must change this together now. Yes, and that's why I invite you to do this together with me now. Yeah, and that's the beginning of shared ownership, instead of trying to force people or bribe people into acceptance. It's a very different approach, really, from the start.
Yeah. Here's this thing. Own it. Like, I'm telling you to own it. I'm not saying it's not your choice. You're not. It's like, oh, okay. There's this thing, right? What?
Just own it. Just own it. Own it. Own it.
That's the force part. That's the
another song, and it's called Beat It. No, but just own it is not. It's not enough. You have to say, I invite you. You decide, and if you say yes, if you accept my invitation, then we both own it, and then we can do more than I just going alone, or we just going with you together. We can be more effective and faster and do more and think more and have better ideas, better interventions that we will do on the system. So. Yeah, but what got me really fascinated with this topic is that, how profoundly mistaken is all this notion of change management, and the change management methods, and this fixation, and to call it fixation on acceptance. I found that very pointy, very, very
relevant, or just interesting, maybe that.
And it is, of course, to say we have fixation, acceptance fixation. I'm not sure if that's a good way to say it in English. Acceptance fixation. It sounds like an illness. I think does it?
Well, what you do with fixation, you unfix it, of course, right?
Yeah, okay, you're making fun of me. You're teasing me. But
No.
I won't say anything. No.
But I think that's
acceptance
was just an inside
fixation.
joke.
That sounds like an illness, and it is an illness that most, I would say, 96% of people in the organizational development change or agile arena, or even the lean arena, they are fixated on acceptance. It's also this that cripples, that dooms us right from the start. Nope.
And again, I think, I was going to take it another place, that there's this fixation also around that command and control, and the authoritarian hierarchy, and the managerial force bit, is that there's a fixation that it must be that way. That is a baseline assumption. And so to be fixated on that, it blinds you to the possibilities of other ways of doing and being. So that's a different kind of fixation, possibly. But
I would frame it differently. I would say from the experience of command and control or alpha organizations, pyramid hierarchical organizations, the acceptance fixation illness comes from that model as well. Because in command and control organizations, we try to force or bribe or coerce people into acceptance all the time. For example, to accept indicators, targets, OKRs, bonus systems, to accept that they have to, check in and check out, accept horrible human resources practices and patterns, accept that limitations from budgeting and controlling and monitoring systems, all that kind of stuff. We force them to accept rules like travel policies that are nonsensical. We talked about that over and over in this show. So the acceptance fixation illness is built into command and control. I would put it like that. It's not, oh yeah, that's another illness, another fixation. No, I think it's related. Acceptance fixation is it's an alpha pattern.
It's a pathology.
Yeah, exactly. It's part of the mess, the alpha mess. Yeah. And of course, not of course, but I would argue that, because we may disagree, right? As always. In alpha, in command and control, we tend to drive change in a certain way that is related to acceptance, fixation on acceptance. Yeah. And we think that we have to first build the acceptance, and then we can roll out, force through, implement, execute. Sounds like French Revolution, hanging.
So we can handle the resistors. We can handle the resistors.
Exactly, and resistance, status quo, and all the crap that we already discussed in other episodes. It is a byproduct of alpha system. The way we do organizational change or execute on change stuff. It's horrifically biased, and the problem is that when we want to get to beta, we still often are unconsciously addicted to this alpha style of making change happen. And that cannot work. You cannot produce democracy, citizenry, organizational democracy, beta, self-organization, decentralization with an acceptance fixation, with a fixation on acceptance. It's just impossible. Yeah. And I think that's beautiful insight, beautiful framing, very simple. Instead, get going with, develop the willpower. One person. That's why I like to say that a single person in an alpha organization with absolute willpower to do the right thing will transform the organization. Well, failure might ensue, but that means that person will probably leave. Yeah, leave at a certain point. I'm thinking here in extremes at this moment.
Sure.
I'm thinking the extreme. If you have somebody with total conviction, total willpower that alpha is bullshit, that an organization needs to be beta, and that I want this personally for me and for the others, that we become beta, democratic, decentralized, self-organized, then that should happen to move everybody along if that person deploys principles of invitation and shared ownership. Yeah. So, or let's say, then
I wanted to come.
Success is likely.
Go ahead, please repeat that. I was going to interrupt you with something.
Transformation process is likely if somebody is really, really convinced and really, really wants beta and applies those principles of invitation, shared ownership, very fast organizational transformation, then success is likely. Of course, it's even better if it's a person with the appropriate
authority.
Authority, who is sponsor material, as we say in open space beta, to do this. But in principle, it could be anyone, because if you have this package of full conviction and you walk up to the potential sponsor and invite that person to think along, to convince herself or himself to not to accept, but to
consider,
to contemplate, to reflect, to learn ultimately, then that should work. I always like to say, please never try to convince another person. Because that's
invite consideration, and basically. So the couple words you use there, I think this is part of the diving into the distinctions of someone who has willpower and takes action, right?
Yes, yes, that's very important. Yes.
Okay, that in the world outside the world that you and I live in here in this container of beta, some folks might call that a leader. And
yeah, what for?
well,
It's
that's
such a sloppy. That's why I hate the term
that's
leader.
the thing. That's the thing. That leadership is that. Well, what do you really mean? And this is why again, as we've started to
I would
talk about that,
just say that person acts with integrity and loyalty, or to
and
the cause and to the company is likely, right?
well, and it's ownership, taking responsibility, and being respectful of others.
Yeah.
Agency and dignity and all that kind of stuff. But that's hard to put into a 6-letter word, Niels.
Yeah. We shouldn't put all shit into 6-letter words. Not everything is love or sex or money, 6-letter words, almost. Some things are more subtle. They need to be explained, discussed, socialized. Yeah, you're totally right. It's why are we so addicted to tagging everything as leadership or followership? It's a nasty impulse. We should, say no, integrity, acting, the conviction, what is it? And all these things need to be questioned, of course. Is that person really acting with conviction? Is that person really acting, or is that person just speaking the words? Like in the agile movement, nobody means the words. Almost nobody means the words. People tell.
There are people who mean the words. Maybe I would say so.
Give me some.
Well, oh gosh.
Only the positive ones. Only positive ones that could. I would say Daniel Mezek. He means the words.
Well, Dan Mezek, my buddy Al Shalloway, I talk with.
Al Shalloway, okay, I accept it. Yeah, he seems to be to have integrity. I know.
God, I'm only saying this because I don't want to call it like my buddy Marcelo. He does Marcelo Lopez. I'm talking with him a lot. My guy Chris Vestal. I mean, 3 guys I talk with regularly.
Good.
Gunther Verheyen, I think, is one. I don't know if you know Gunther. You know Gunther. Wolfram Muller, I think, is Wolfram. Steve Tendon. I mean, again, we could go through these different approaches, but I think at their core, Mike Burrows, another guy, super wonderful individual. I mean, I talk to these folks,
and there are millions of others who do not.
Well, I can't speak for the people I don't know, and I don't want to talk about the people I don't know.
We talked about this all the time. People who do not mean it give themselves away by promoting sloppy approaches, by making the quick buck, by sacrificing truth, by And this is not about anybody in particular. This is not. It's not supposed to be a blame game. But if everybody meant what they say, we would be in a different place already. Instead, we use the tools that we use, the methods that we apply. They give ourselves away. Certain methods or tools cannot be credibly promoted or advanced in the name of agility. It's just and people do not take responsibility. They say, I'm unaware. I had this, as you know, I had this post about agile frameworks. Whoever promotes them is I cannot respect them. I find it hard to respect them, because everybody in his or her right mind with a little bit of integrity should by now be aware that none of those frameworks promotes self-organization, democracy, agility, actually. So arguing that you do not know, it's not a convincing cause, I think, or OKRs. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Well, the OKRs gets us into another conversation topic for the other day about fixed targets.
Yeah, we do not want to talk so much about bad method here, because that's not. It's an easy target, right? To talk about stuff that's evil or doesn't work or that's command control inherently, like OKRs, like agile frameworks, and so many other tools.
MBOs.
We can mention this in brief, but we never want to do entire episodes about those things, because that would be just bashing cheap entertainment. Yeah, and that's not what this is about. It's just for reflection. If we talk about in the context of our conversation today, basing organizational development and change not on acceptance fixation, but on building shared ownership with
Yeah.
everyone, with all the willing. You cannot employ those tools either. That's why, by the way, we both love open space. That's why we love invitation-based change. That's why we believe in relative targets, because those are approaches that enable to take
freeze on the
responsibility
screen.
for themselves, for their work.
Yeah, your internet popped back for a second, so I didn't to say that yet. So you're there now. So again, to flip to the positive again, what we're talking about is by what means does sustainable, lasting commitment and ownership of a change, and again, it's not like there are flips and then change is happening. It's not like there's, hey, we're here and now we're stopped. Now we're not going to change anymore after that. Now there's no more change after that. But the idea of to turn from this planning mode to the practice mode, to the preparation mode. What does it mean to be continuously preparing and not just stopped, sense, respond, plan, do that mechanically, but to be in flow and to be aware, present. What does it? You can't just tell somebody to do that. I can't just tell you to have presence of mind. I can't just tell you to prepare. I can't tell you don't do budgets anymore, right?
Yes.
I just tell you the importance is to show you. I think that's and how best to show by being the invitation yourself. I think that by taking ownership yourself, I think we talked about this too, is that taking ownership yourself and acting in accordance with that in integrity and all these kind of positive behaviors that invites ownership, that creates a sense of commitment, that also creates the other word that maybe talk about, we used to say it a lot, was engagement, right? But but let's just say it for now, and I'll argue about that another day. But it creates this well-being, joy at work, all the stuff that we talked about, all the ideals that we are seeking, the more perfect union, if you will, of an organization. But so invitation is the key, I mean, that isn't that really the topic we're talking about?
Invitation is the key, and in a way, invitation is the opposite of fixation on acceptance as well, because when you invite, you give a choice. When you invite, you say the choice is now. You can still consider yourself invited later, but now I invite you now, so now you can make a choice. So that is the opposite of, it's a great example, Ryan, of building shared ownership as opposed to building acceptance. Because once you invite people, you give them the opportunity to make one decision. I'm in, I'm not in, I'm in, I'm out, for the time being, for this moment. And that is already, it's much more powerful than trying to build acceptance, right? Because you might say, building acceptance is, this is nice, but it's not powerful, because you do not give people an opportunity.
You're not really committed to and care about it. So now you've accepted this. Now have shared responsibility for it.
Yeah, and what's the consequence of accepting? Nothing. Then I can wait, and then somebody will implement the change for me. That's another way another reason why fixation on acceptance is flawed, because once a person accepts or fools you into fakes acceptance, what will be the consequence? Nothing, probably. Waiting, for somebody else to execute. But if you build shared ownership, invitation-based, of course, the consequence of accepting the invitation is that then you have to act as well. The person who accepts the invitation is that part of it. I think is authorized to act and called upon to act.
The shared responsibility. I think this is another key. That this is yes, it is. Also, it is a yes and thing. It is not only am I taking responsibility for my own performance and not depending on somebody else to manage it for me. This is the whole process. I am also inviting you as my colleague in this group to share responsibility with me, we are going to hold each other accountable and have this sense of control, because we have, again, I'm going in a little bit into the weeds in terms of a BetaCodex about a cell structure, but that our group, we are accountable to each other. We have shared responsibility for these outcomes that we agree on, and this is we're inviting each other into, and I think the idea of shared responsibility versus I'm not responsible. Well, I'm responsible for this, but I don't have authority. I'm accountable to them, but they will do the change. They'll change they will give me the knowledge I need. I'm not responsible for attaining it to grow my own mastery, because I care about this group, because I care about you as an individual, and I care about this and that. But and we are a group that has a profit and loss statement. We all know what it is, and we all make decisions here based on our mass, all this kind of stuff. I mean, go down to the nth level, but this is what in a beta transformation is being invited, right? And it requires ownership. It requires citizenship. I think that's another guide into the I forget her name that you mentioned, that who inspired you to kind of go this way.
Anita
the talk. Pardon?
Anita Angel, the professor.
Yes, the professor.
Yeah.
But the sense of citizenship and membership it's a fundamental understanding, and that ownership, citizenship, membership, those are the ships, additional ships in addition to the leaderships. I think that matter, the distinctions that matter.
I think that is leadership. Shared ownership is leadership. Leadership is shared ownership. That's very important. Leadership isn't, we talked about this repeatedly.
It exists.
It's not something that individuals, or supposed leaders, do to accept responsibility. I mean, Daniel Mesick calls this engagement. Yeah, okay. Or we call this engagement as well. But engagement is leadership. Shared engagement, doing things together, working together with all the willing, working the system together, and focusing on the system, not on people. That is leadership. It's a social dynamic needed to overcome the system. That is exactly what leadership is. We don't the ones. I think that's another doom thing, to allow for people to attach the leadership tag to people.
Yeah, personalizing leadership.
Yeah,
is
and heroism. It's the antidote to actual leadership.
Now, leadership is not a group of people. Management is not a group of people. Managers are people.
No, leadership is a social dynamic between people, among people.
It is between people, but to say the leadership as a noun, right? As in referring to
they do not need leadership, they are leadership. Yeah, the social dynamics are leadership. Yeah, it's very tricky. This term leadership, it's too hot to handle in a way. Yeah, if we handle it, I think we should be very rigorous, very, very monkish about it, very restrained. Handle with care.
Well, language matters.
Leading and leaders, because that's a slippery slope. My recommendation: we don't have to agree.
What with the talk of leaders and leading being useless or being evil? I think that was we've talked that on occasion, but.
So once you talk about leadership, of course, you invite people to already fantasize about individuals, because that's such a common sense theme. And so that's why people influenced by people like Brene Brown, or Simon Sinek is so toxic, because they always attribute, or Ray Dalio, or other.
We won't talk leaders. We won't talk negatively.
Thought-killing leaders. That's the idea of heads and hearts, and it's hard to get rid of it. Like the concept of race, for example. Once you have pronounced it, you cannot get rid of it anymore. You cannot not say that it doesn't exist. It's a toxic concept to begin with, and it cannot be easily be.
Can't take it, but you can't erase it. When you
can't take it back. Like the invention of God. The invention of gods also. Once you invent gods, you cannot take it back. It's the same with stuff like race or leadership, or leaders. Once you put that out, it's too late already. It's hard to overcome it, because then you have to fight it all the time. It's the notion of leaders in this case, right? And of course racism. It needs to be fought all the time, because it's such an idea that however you turn it, it will never produce anything good.
Yeah, it's a no-win. It turns into a win-lose situation.
Exactly. It turns into a lose-lose-lose, for all.
Yeah.
And the same, I think, applies to words like leaders, the heroism, all these heroism
and
words.
Yeah. So the words of the day are doomed. Doomed is a word. And acceptance, aiming for acceptance is doomed, right? And because it is doomed, because it is a hopeless pursuit, and what we would call a quixotic pursuit, right? Are you familiar with that word, quixotic? The good old Don Quixote.
Oh, yes, I'm aware.
Oh, that's a lovely word. I love it. Great for Scrabble, by the way. And I don't know what more can we say about acceptance. The thing I'm coming back to, just when we're talking about words and the meaning of words and the semantics of this, that, well, am I not accepting your invitation? Or I'm expecting you to accept the invitation, but no, you're responding. I mean, this is, and I think this also goes into the theme crafting. What words are you using? And based on the what exists in your organizational environment, your design language of your organization, what words are going to use that aren't coercive, aren't forceful, and don't instill fear in some way. And that takes some education, information about how folks in top management communicate. I mean,
how everybody communicates, really, and what are accepted terms, accepted ways of expression. And as you know, we have this poster of words in German already. Words that belong on the dark side, words that belongs to the light. 300 words on one poster. Very useful.
Those translated. It's great poster.
Yeah. Remember that I started translating it and I invited you to add to it or to revise it?
I think I did a few, but it's been a while.
Yeah. It was a while back. At a certain point, I invited you to look at it, and we can try so again, because I have this semi ready. I think there are 270 words on it already. This needs to be updated. Language changes all the time, right? So we have this, and of course this is stuff we can share as well with if anybody here is interested in
you out there are also invited. Those of you who are watching this are invited to help us, and I would be remiss to say that Niels and I, you don't have to agree with us, but please talk with us. And make your comments on the video. Join the BetaCodex Network LinkedIn group. Do all these things. Engage with this knowledge and this information, and we will dance with you. We will share what we know and
we are highly accepting of disagreements, of comments. Of course, we will not easily change our minds either.
Well, and nor do we expect others to do so. It is if decentralization, organizational democracy, federalization, these kind of unity, not uniformity, all the concepts we talk about. If someone is new to them and challenges that, I invite that challenge so that we might learn together and know together, as we do here on a regular basis. So.
Yes, I mean, one of the didactics of change, and this is related to the subject, and you're kind of circling back to our topic there.
Yep.
Directly, is that if you do not look for acceptance, you will. I will put it in a personal way. Others might frame it differently. you have to dare to confront others with certain insights or concepts or words. You have to if you are not fixated on acceptance, you can be more daring in your communication, and that's, I think, what we sometimes do here and on LinkedIn. Sometimes well done, sometimes not so well done, of course, but
we're doing this live, so who knows?
Exactly, we're doing this live, so at the risk of being misunderstood, of let's say not sounding nice at times. The idea here is to, not to achieve acceptance, but to invite into the movement. That's the purpose of this podcast, this series here as well. And of course, we're doing this to confront others with vocabulary that's more daring, that's more self-organized, and to hint people at vocabulary that doesn't work, at tools that don't work. All that is part of the shared ownership approach, in a way. Yeah, it is to treat others like adults, not like children. To not explain everything in full, so that others can make up their minds by themselves.
And this is again, this is doing some history here. Again, one of the things that when I first encountered you, and I think when others encounter you online or wherever, is that you don't necessarily give all the answers to what's out there, and it's and I can't remember how many times I got pissed off on you online. Probably a ton, and been like, it's like, what is he talking about? I don't understand. And then and it was like, okay. And if I go back with some half-assed cockamamie thought, and it's like, no, and we got into it a couple times, and again, this is a while back, but then I say, okay, let me think about this. Let me just imagine, just break down a couple assumptions that I might have and question those assumptions and say, okay, well, what are we talking about leaders? Why is the concept of leaders authoritarian? Why is that evil? What makes that evil? And what are we talking about? Dependency, right? Dependence. What does that mean? No, but I mean, all these kinds of things that it takes a while, but you have to be willing to think. You have to take responsibility for thinking, and that's. I'm not saying, not everyone thinks all the time. Is willing to, because for many
neither do we,
reasons,
right? So it requires willingness and dedication for others to change our minds, for us to change our minds. Others need to tease us a little bit to it. Like Anita Angel at that conference, she definitely, when she talked about this distinction between acceptance fixation and shared ownership, building shared ownership, I turned to Silke and said, like, this is gold. We can go, we can leave. We have enough. This is too good.
Yeah.
It was. She blinded me with science, so to speak. It helps. Yeah, it's a tremendously powerful insight that needs to be shared. So we're inviting everybody to share it as well, to share this video, to share the topic. If anybody wants, I can of course share the link for the talk. It was recorded at the time by Anita Angel. It's in German, and there is another talk in German with Silke Hermann about this talk, this topic. So she, I think, puts it very well, delightfully well in this reflection talk. It's 45 minutes long. So for anybody who's interested in learning more about this topic, specifically about this distinction, acceptance fixation versus building shared ownership, there are those two fabulous video clips out there. And ask me if you want to obtain the links. I can post them under this session.
Yes, please do. I would like them because I haven't seen them. So there you go. That'll be the first. I'll share it. What else is there to say about
this? Is it
fixation? This fixation.
This is it.
When it's over, it's over. Is there anything happening for you that you want to invite folks into that's going on today or near that an event that you have going on possibly, or
I have this almost free BetaCodex workout day on 30 August in Wiesbaden. It's in German. Yeah. So if you are in Germany, if you speak German, you might be from Switzerland or Austria as well, or Luxembourg, it doesn't matter. But if you speak German, if you are interested in all these topics, on the 30th of August, I will run this session in Wiesbaden, the almost free BetaCodex workout day. There is you can sign up to this event through the Red 42 web shop. It's almost free, as the name says.
Almost free.
And it's a wonderful opportunity, I think, for people dedicated to change, to organizational development. They might be consultants, advisors, or internal change agents, change experts, organizational development experts. It's a day for those people, that kind of folks, to engage in conversation with me for a day here in Wiesbaden. So yeah, you are invited. That's one thing.
Studio. Yes.
At the studio.
And there's a cell-structure design mini course also coming up, I think.
Yes. Cell-structure design, I think, is on the 26th of August. That's a 2-hour mini course in English. It's called Cell-structure design quick start. So that's a nice thing. There's the event subscription, or you can register for that on Eventbrite. It's called Cell-structure design quick start. Yeah, 2-hour online session, live session, where you can get an introduction from me, but also where you can get all your questions around cell-structure design, decentralization answered. Yeah, so those are 2 events that are coming up. And I also have been thinking about research lately again. I'm inviting anyone who's interested in doing research with the BetaCodex network, for the BetaCodex network, who wants to think and reflect and put things together and apart and share insight, achieve insight, gain insight around beta transformation. You are invited to join in the community and get involved in the research. That's on betacodex.org. There's a whole page, the code of conduct page, and also a page on the research we are already doing, just so that you can take a look at what's already happening.
Yes. That sounds like an invitation to me to take ownership and responsibility. So with that, I have only myself, the music of work.substack.com, my new Substack, Riffing with Ryan, which I do and have conversations with those agilists often and other interesting folks.
Yes.
And seeking to bring the music to this because I believe, and you don't have to agree, or none of you out there do, but that what we are talking about here is an inherently human process, just like music, and that beta organizations are musical organizations, I believe. And that's my story, and that's my story, and sticking to it. And if you want to know more about that, contact me and we'll talk about that. So,
by the way, it should be mentioned that you did a wonderful overhaul of your YouTube channel. So I think now the topics are much more distributed.
It's better.
Yeah. So for anybody interested in those topics, like organizational musicality or the musicality of work,
yes,
you will find on your YouTube channel, Ryan, people will find the videos, the recordings, which are wonderful. Indeed. And also other topics like agile coaching, the agile movement, and so on. And Amplio, I think you have a whole channel.
Amplio, yes. Which is a system of patterns that are modular and ways to do engineering that aren't restricted to those bloody frameworks, but allow people to build organizational engineering practices that are fit for purpose. So that's a good thing.
It's like Scrum, only better.
Well, yeah. Well, Al's like a Scrum deconstructionist, if you would say that. So,
yeah, I think that's long overdue. I mean, when Scrum was new, everybody was awed, but I think it has fallen back. It didn't become better. It hasn't improved over time. And secondly, I think it has, as a reality, the world has changed. The world of software development has changed, and so on. the contexts have changed, it would have had to grow conceptually, which I think it didn't did that much, right? So
Not that
I
much.
think that critical thinking, like Al Shaloway's, I think, is behind Ampleon, right?
Yes, indeed.
I think that's long overdue. It's wonderful that some people like Dan Mazik, of course, or Al Shaloway are making up their mind about how to get software management done really beyond agile scaling, which is doomed. Yeah. How to create different practices, better practices, modular practices, as you just said. I think that's wonderful work.
And again, in my mind, again, why I like to talk about this, why I like to talk about it with you, is that these practices are all very respectful of human agency, respectful of human capacity, intrinsic motivation, and all of those things without that bullshit imposition on top of them. So very good. Well,
Thank you for the gift of your time. It was lovely, like as always.
Well, thank you for the precious gift of your time and attention, Niels, and those of you who are out there in the burgeoning betaverse. I will press the button that says end stream and say adieu to you.